A giant cowboy saved a Comanche girl from wolves, and she swore to be his bride. The storm rolled low over the plains, dragging a white sheet across the earth so thick even the horizon vanished. And somewhere inside that pale silence came the sound that stopped Cole Maddox cold. A cry, high and sharp, like a wounded animal fighting the dark. He reined his horse around, snow whipping against his coat, listening again. There it was, closer this time, followed by the savage growl of wolves. Without thinking, he kicked the gelding forward, the wind tearing at his hat, his breath burning like smoke in the frozen air. The sound led him to a gully where 6 wolves circled a figure half buried in drifted snow. A young woman, wrapped in torn buckskin, swung a branch wildly, blood streaking her arm, her eyes burning with the last of her strength. Cole drew his rifle in one motion, the shot cracking through the storm, the first wolf dropping mid-lunge. The others turned, snarling, yellow eyes flashing. He fired twice more, then leapt from the saddle, pulling his knife free as the last lunged for her throat. One swing, one blur of motion, and the snow turned red. The silence after felt heavier than the storm. The girl sagged to her knees, chest heaving, staring at him like she wasn't sure he was real. "You hurt bad?" he asked, voice rough from cold and smoke. She blinked, blood running from a small cut above her brow. "No," she whispered, English broken but strong. "You kill spirits." "Just wolves," he said, tearing his coat open and wrapping it around her shoulders. She flinched at first, then gripped the fabric, eyes locked on his face. "Why?" He hesitated. "Because you were alive." Her gaze softened, and for the first time he saw the fear behind the fire. "You cowboy?" she asked. He nodded once. "Name's Cole." She swallowed hard. "I am Nia," she said, pressing her palm against her heart. "Comanche, you saved me. I owe you." He shook his head. "You don't owe nothing." But she leaned forward, touching his chest with trembling fingers. "In our law, life for life. You saved me. I am yours." Cole froze, the storm hissing around them like the world itself held its breath. "That ain't how I see it," he said softly. "Then you see wrong," she answered, and the way she said it made something deep in him crack open like ice under spring thaw. He helped her onto his horse, her hands clutching his arm, and rode toward the dim glow of his cabin through the falling snow. The storm behind them closing like a curtain over everything they'd left unsaid. By the time Cole reached the cabin, the storm had swallowed the plains whole, the snow falling so thick it turned the trees into ghosts. He pushed through the door with his shoulder, carrying Nia inside, her skin cold as riverstone, her breath shallow but steady. The cabin was small, a single room with a bed, a stove, and the scent of pine smoke clinging to the air. He set her down by the fire, stripped off his gloves, and threw wood into the stove until it roared. "You stay still," he said, his voice low but firm. "You bleed through that arm." She didn't answer, only watched him with the wary calm of someone raised to measure strangers by the look in their eyes. When he knelt to check her wound, she pulled back. "You no touch," she murmured. "Spirit still near." Cole frowned. "You think I scared of spirits?" "You should be," she said, her voice a whisper of wind. "They see you." He paused, then sat back on his heels. "Then let 'em. I got nothing to hide." Her lips parted, almost a smile, and she let him clean the cut, his big hands surprisingly gentle. He tied a strip of linen around her arm, then handed her a cup of coffee. She sipped, wincing at the heat, eyes flicking to the fire. "You live alone?" she asked. "Been that way a while," he said. "Easier to keep peace with nobody to lose." Nia's gaze didn't waver. Peace is empty. Better than war. Not always. She set the cup down, the tremor in her hands gone now. I go home tomorrow, she said softly. My father's camp is 2 days' ride east. Cole nodded. I'll take you. But she shook her head. If I go with you, they say I belong to you. You saved me. You make claim. I ain't claiming nothing, he said, jaw tightening. You're free. Her eyes glimmered in the firelight, dark and fierce. Then why your eyes say different? The word struck like flint. Cole looked away, stoking the fire again, though it didn't need it. Get some rest, he muttered. Storm will break by dawn. She lay down wrapped in his coat, her gaze never leaving him. Outside, the wind screamed like it carried all the things neither dared say. And when sleep finally took her, Cole sat awake, the firelight carving his shadow against the wall, wondering why saving her felt less like mercy and more like fate knocking on his door. When morning came, the storm had fallen silent, the world wrapped in white so bright it hurt to look at. Cole stepped outside to feed the horses, breath curling in the cold, his mind still tangled in the words she'd said by the fire. Inside, Nia stirred beneath his coat, the faint crackle of the stove waking her. She sat up slowly, the morning light sliding across her face, making her look like something the snow itself had shaped. Soft, fierce, and impossible to forget. You go? She asked when he came back in. Just tending the stock, he said. Storm near broke the roof, but we'll ride soon. She looked toward the door. I remember this place. Ridge near river. Yeah, he said, surprised. Your people camped nearby last spring. Then you see them, she said, tilting her head. Did you fear? Cole shook his head. I don't fear folks who protect their own. She studied him, her eyes searching his face. You different than men who wear blue coats. Ain't hard to be, he said, pouring coffee into a tin cup. She smiled faintly. You talk like warrior. Just a man trying not to do more harm than I already done. Nia stood, stepping close enough he could feel the warmth of her breath. You saved me, she said quietly. But you save yourself too. Spirit chose you, I swear by it. Cole frowned. Swear what? To be your woman, she said, her voice trembling with both pride and certainty. To walk behind you in shadow, or beside you in sun. The words hung between them, raw and sacred. He shook his head, stepping back. That's not how I live. You don't owe me nothing. She placed her hand over his heart, where the rhythm thudded beneath her palm. I owe life, she said. You give. I return. He didn't speak. The fire popped once, loud enough to startle them both. Outside, the first light of dawn broke through the trees, turning the world gold. Come on, he said finally, voice rough. Let's get you home before the world decides I stole you. She looked at him for a long moment, then nodded. But as she stepped past him toward the door, she whispered something in her own tongue. A vow, soft as breath, but strong as blood. And though Cole couldn't understand the words, he knew deep down they just changed everything. The snow melted quick under the rising sun, leaving the plains slick with mud and water that shone like glass. Cole rode ahead, Nia behind him wrapped in a blanket, her dark hair whipping loose in the wind. The silence between them stretched long and heavy, filled only by the creak of leather and the rhythm of hooves. When they stopped at the ridge, he pointed to the horizon where red stone bluffs cut across the sky. Your people there? He asked. She nodded. Beyond river. If they see you, they come fast. Let 'em, he said. Ain't done nothing wrong. To them, she replied softly, wrong can wear your face. Cole met her gaze, then turned back to the trail. Then I'll ride honest. By noon they reached the river crossing, the air warm and still. He helped her down, their hands brushing, both pretending it didn't matter. She knelt by the water, washing the blood from her arm, her reflection trembling on the surface. My father think I dead, she said quietly. He pray for my spirit. When he see me with you? She looked up, fear flickering through her calm. He think I belong. Cole crouched beside her. Then tell him I don't own you. He not hear that, she said. Comanche law see vow as bond. You mean the one you made last night? He asked. She nodded once. Words stay when snow gone. Cole sighed. You said that in the storm. You don't owe me your life. Nia stood, her eyes fierce now. It not debt, it gift. You not understand gift? He opened his mouth, then stopped. Her voice wasn't angry, just true. They rode on, and when the sun dropped low, the red hills rose ahead like fire against the sky. Smoke drifted from distant fires, drums echoing faintly through the canyons. They close, she said. You should go back. Cole shook his head. Not till I see you safe. If they kill you, then they'll have to try hard. She gave him a long, unreadable look. You speak like man who already died once. Maybe I did, he said. Maybe saving you was how I came back. She turned away, pretending not to smile, and the drums grew louder. When the first riders appeared on the ridge, 5, then 10, their feathers flashing in the sunset, Nia lifted her hand high and shouted in her own tongue. The riders slowed, uncertain. Cole watched them approach, knowing the next word spoken would decide whether mercy lived or burned on this side of the hills. The riders surrounded them in a storm of color and motion, horses snorting, spears flashing in the dying light. Cole sat still, reins loose, eyes steady, the wind lifting his coat like a flag that didn't know which side it belonged to. One man dismounted, a broad-shouldered elder with silver braids and a scar down his cheek. His presence alone made the younger warriors lower their weapons. Nia, he said in Comanche, his voice rough as gravel. She slid from her saddle, kneeling before him. Father, she breathed. The spirits brought me back. The old chief's eyes softened, then darkened again when they turned to Cole. Who rides with you? She rose slowly. The one who killed the wolves. The chief's gaze narrowed. Why? Because they would have killed me. No, he said coldly. Why would a white man risk death for what is not his? Cole dismounted, his boots sinking into red dust. She's a person, he said evenly. That's reason enough. Murmurs rippled through the riders. The chief stepped closer. And yet she says she is your woman. Did you claim her? Cole's jaw tensed. No, she swore that herself. I told her she was free. And still she speaks your name as if it were carved in her bones. Nia stepped forward, eyes bright. He saved me when no one else would. My vow is mine. The chief looked from her to Cole, his face unreadable. In our law, her vow binds you both. Break it, and you break her spirit. Cole's breath fogged in the cooling air. I didn't come here to take her, just to bring her home. The chief studied him for a long moment, and then nodded to his men. He speaks truth, he said. But truth does not erase what has been spoken to the spirits. Nia bowed her head. Then let the spirits see honor, she said. He saved life. I give loyalty. If he walk away, I follow. The chief's shoulders sank as though the years weighed all at once. Then so be it, but he stays until the sun decides. Cole frowned. What's that mean? Tomorrow, the chief said. If the dawn comes quiet, you may go. If not, the gods have other plans. As the riders led them toward the camp, torches flaring like stars against the dark, Nia glanced back. Do not fear, she whispered. The spirits already chose. Cole looked at her, the firelight catching the red in her hair, and wondered if maybe they had. Night fell over the Comanche camp like a slow-breathing beast, its fires glowing against the canyon walls while drums beat low and steady, calling to gods older than any border. Cole sat cross-legged near the central fire, his rifle laid aside, eyes following the shadows of dancers circling the flames. Nia knelt beside her father, her head bowed, whispering prayers that flickered between English and her native tongue. The chief had said little since sunset, only that the spirits would speak through trial, and that by dawn, truth would be known. When two warriors approached carrying torches, the chief rose. The fire sees through lies, he said. If this man's heart is false, it will burn him. Cole stood, broad and silent, the heat shimmering against his face. And if it ain't? The chief's gaze was sharp as flint. Then he walks away in peace, and she may follow if she dares. Cole met Nia's eyes, and something inside him steadied. Do what you gotta do. They drew a circle in the dirt, piled branches high, and lit them until the air roared with heat. The chief handed him a carved staff tipped with eagle feathers. Step through the fire, he said. Carry truth in your hands. Cole glanced once at Nia. She nodded, tears catching the light. Without hesitation, he walked forward, the flames curling high around him, smoke clawing at his throat. The heat seared through his coat, the world turning white with pain, but he kept walking, step after step, until he came out the other side. Steam rising from his sleeves, his boots blackened but his hands still holding the staff steady. The camp fell silent. The chief stared at him, awe replacing doubt. No man lies and lives through that, he murmured. Nia ran to him, pressing her hands against his chest. You fool, she whispered, laughing through tears. You make spirits cry. Cole managed a smile. Guess I had to make my case. The chief approached, laying a hand on his shoulder. The fire chose, he said solemnly. The vow stands true. Cole's throat tightened. I never meant, meaning no longer matters, the chief interrupted. You walk as one now. Nia looked up, eyes shining like wet earth after rain. Then I walk with him. The drums began again, slower, deeper, echoing through the canyon as sparks rose into the stars. Cole glanced at the flames still burning, feeling something shift inside him. Pain, pride, and peace all at once. As if the fire had burned away everything false and left only what was meant to be. When the dawn finally broke, the camp lay quiet, the ashes from the fire drifting through the air like the breath of something holy. Cole sat by the river, shirt torn and skin blistered where the heat had bitten deep. But he didn't move, just stared at the sunlight bleeding across the water. He heard her before he saw her. Soft footsteps in the sand, the jingle of beads. Nia knelt beside him, her shadow falling across his arm. You live, she said simply. Barely, he muttered, though his mouth curved faintly. I've had worse nights. Spirits say fire burn lies, she said. You walk through so you know lie. He glanced at her. You believe that? She smiled. I saw truth before fire. Her fingers brushed his wrist, tracing the scar that ran to his palm. You not like others. You fight for what heart tell, not what worlds say. He looked back toward the camp, where her father stood alone, watching them from a distance. Your old man don't seem convinced. He respect courage, she said, but fear what come after. So do I. She tilted her head. You still want leave? He hesitated. You said your people see vows as forever. I ain't the kind of man who should be somebody's forever. Forever not same as chain, she said softly. Forever is choice you make again each day. The words caught him off guard, more than any bullet ever had. And you choose me? Already did, she said. And the smile she gave him was small and sure, like dawn pushing back night. He looked down at the water, then at her reflection beside his own. You realize your father's gonna hate me a good long while. He will learn, she said. Spirit guide those who forgive. You got a lot of faith. Enough for both. Cole chuckled quietly. Guess that's good, since I'm running low. She touched his face gently. Then borrow mine. For a moment the world went still, the river, the wind, even the breath between them. Then she stood and offered her hand. Come. They wait for you. For me? For us. When he rose, his shadow fell across hers, two shapes stretching together over the sand. In the distance, the drums began again. Slower this time, not for judgment, but for life. As they walked back toward camp, Cole felt the strange peace that comes when a man stops running from the thing he was never meant to escape. By midday, the camp was alive with motion. Horses saddled, children laughing, women weaving smoke-colored cloth, while warriors packed their bows. The chief stood near the central fire, his expression grave, but not cruel. Cole walked beside Nia, his steps heavy, every eye in camp following him like a shadow that didn't belong. The old man raised a hand, and silence fell. The fire tested you, he said, his voice carrying across the plain. Now the land will. Cole frowned. What's that mean? You ride with my daughter to the Red Bluff, the chief replied. The spirits watch from the cliffs. If you reach before sunset, the vow stands. If not, the wind takes her back. Nia's hand brushed Cole's arm. It is trial of journey, she whispered. Heart must stay steady, not just legs. Cole looked toward the mountains, jagged against the bright sky. Then, let's ride. The chief gave a single nod, and they mounted. The camp parted before them, a quiet corridor of faces, some wary, some respectful. As they left, Nia turned once, her father's gaze softening for the briefest moment before he looked away. They rode hard, wind tearing through their hair, the sky wide and endless above. Hawks circled overhead, their cries sharp against the silence. Cole spoke little, his focus locked on the distant ridge where the red stone burned in the sunlight. Around them, the plain stretched forever, the kind of distance that made men doubt their own strength. You think we make it? He asked. If heart believe, she said. Do you? She smiled, eyes bright. You saved me from wolves. You walk through fire, this just wind. They crossed the river at noon, water splashing cold over their boots, then climbed the narrow trail that wound between cliffs. Halfway up, a rumble of thunder rolled from the west. Storm clouds gathered fast, swallowing the sun. Nia urged her horse forward, shouting something in her language, her hair whipping wild. Lightning split the sky, illuminating the ridge just beyond reach. Cole leaned into the wind, muscles burning, every breath a fight. When they burst onto the bluff, the last light of day caught them full in its gold. Nia dismounted first, raising her arms to the sky. The spirits see, she cried. Cole followed, heart hammering. For a moment, silence fell. No wind, no thunder, just peace. Then the storm broke behind them, rain sweeping across the plains like applause. Nia turned to him, her face glowing with rain and firelight. We made it, she whispered. "Then I reckon the vow stands," he said, and the wind seemed to bow its head in agreement. The storm chased them all the way back, washing the dust from the world until every rock and leaf gleamed new again. When they rode into the valley at dusk, the campfires of the Comanche glowed like stars fallen to earth, and the people stood waiting in a wide circle. Cole slowed his horse, feeling the eyes upon him, the same eyes that once burned with suspicion, now watching with something closer to belief. The chief stepped forward, rain dripping from his braids, and for a long moment, no one spoke. Then he raised his staff toward the sky. "The spirits saw," he said, his voice steady. "They heard the thunder and the vow that did not break. The fire tested truth, the wind tested courage. Both stand." He turned to Cole, nodding once. "You walk among us with honor." Cole dismounted, his boots sinking into wet earth. "Didn't do it for honor," he said quietly. "Did it 'cause I gave my word." The chief's mouth curved faintly. "Then your word carries more weight than many men's lives." Nia stepped between them, her smile soft and sure. "The spirit's pleased," she said. "They say storm wash away all old anger." "Storms tend to do that," Cole answered. "Make a man remember what matters." The chief looked at his daughter, pride and sorrow tangled in his gaze. "You chose well," he said to her, then turned to Cole. "But know this, cowboy. Keeping her heart will be harder than keeping your breath." Cole nodded. "Reckon I'll just keep trying." Laughter rippled through the circle, easing the tension like sunlight breaking through clouds. The drums began again, slow and deep, and someone threw fresh cedar onto the fire. Smoke rose straight into the clean evening air. Nia took Cole's hand, guiding him toward the flames. "We dance now," she whispered. "It mean peace." "Ain't much of a dancer," he said. "Then just stand," she replied. "I dance for both." The firelight played across her face as she moved, graceful as wind over water. Cole watched her, his chest tightening with something that felt like gratitude and fear tangled into one. When she returned to him, he took her hand and kissed it, rough and unpracticed. The camp cheered softly, and the chief bowed his head to the fire. In that moment, the night seemed to stretch open and breathe again. And for the first time in years, Cole Maddox didn't feel like a man passing through. He felt like one who might finally stay. Days later, the valley shimmered under a clear morning sun, the scent of wet earth still clinging to the air. Cole stood at the edge of the river, where the wolves had first attacked, the place where everything had changed. Nia joined him quietly, her shadow stretching beside his. "You still think about leaving?" she asked. He looked at the horizon, where the plains rolled toward forever. "Used to think the West had no room for peace," he said. "But maybe I was just looking in the wrong places." She smiled faintly. "You look now?" "Every day," he said, eyes turning to her. The breeze lifted her hair, catching the glint of the small silver ring he'd given her, the one he'd carved himself from a bullet casing, rough but shining. "When I first saw you," she said softly, "you were not man of tribe or fire. You were ghost." "Maybe I still am," he said, "but you keep dragging me back to life." "That what love do?" she answered, voice no louder than the wind. Behind them, the camp was alive again, children running, women laughing, men mending fences instead of sharpening blades. The chief stood by the lodge, watching with a pride that carried no resentment now, only weary peace. He caught Cole's eye and nodded once, slow and deliberate. Cole returned the gesture, a silent treaty between men who'd both bled for something worth keeping. The world looked different when hearts stopped fighting it, Nia murmured. You're right about that, Cole said. Used to think this land was cursed. Too much loss, too much noise. But it ain't cursed. It's just honest. She stepped closer, placing her hand against his chest. And you? Guess I'm learning to be honest, too. The river sparkled between them, catching the first warmth of the sun. Overhead, a hawk circled once and soared toward the red horizon. You think they'll ever stop coming? He asked. The ones who take, who burn? No, she said. But now they find something waiting. He smiled. And what's that? Us. He drew a breath, steady and full. Then let 'em come. She reached for his hand, their fingers lacing easily now. Together they watched the morning rise, the sky painted in deep crimson and gold, the color of everything they'd survived. They say the plains remember every cry, Nia whispered. Then maybe they'll remember this, Cole said, his voice low. Not the blood, not the wolves. Just the part where the fire finally went quiet.